Well, hello there. Welcome to Arts Dynamics Talks. I'm Sofie Marin. I'm founder and CEO of Arts Dynamics, and it is such a great pleasure to be here to bring back Arts Dynamics, which was founded during the pandemic, both the company actually, but also this live stream podcast series. We did it as a mini live stream series then, but with everything that's going on right now in the world, I just felt like we have to get back on track with connecting creators all around the world to figure out what are you doing, what's working for you right now, what's not, what are you doing to future-proof your artistic businesses. And this is the perfect spot for that. You can already see our first guest for today here on the screen, and I will very soon give an introduction, but I'll just wave to you now. Hello, welcome. Arts Dynamics Talks, we are here. We're building a global community for creative entrepreneurs, change makers, rebels, visionaries within the cultural and creative industries who are really serious about making the most of what they have, step into their full power, and to future-proof their artistic brands and businesses. And for the talk today, I thought that we were going to talk about how you can frame your stories and narratives from a brand and IP perspective. The reason for that is that the speaker of today and we have a mutual friend who very kindly introduced us at Epicenter Stockholm, where we're based, the company Arts Dynamics. And when I met this powerhouse of a CEO, a creator in the creative industry, and we started talking, and I think we never stopped. In the end, we had to sort of leave it there, but we said, let's continue and have a conversation like we're having today. So the speaker for today, the woman you see in front of you, is the CEO and head of business development at Arvet Agency Transmedia. She's also a member of the board at WIFT, and WIFT stands for Women in Film and Television. So please welcome Miss Grace Maharaj. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you so much, Sofie. What a wonderful introduction. I'm flattered and privileged to be in the space that you have allowed me to be a part of. It's just a fantastic opportunity.
Thank you so much. Well, sometimes when you meet people and you just have that spark and that realness, and I found that when you and I met and had that conversation. And what I loved about it particularly was that we very soon got to the core, the nitty-gritty of the realness of where we are right now in the world. We dove deep into national security concerns even. We've talked about what's happening right now, even with the NATO application. How does that impact us as creators? We talked about artistic freedom. We talked about IP, which obviously is a big thing, even AI. And these are so many big topics, and I hope that we're able to cover those today, or at least start a little bit to dig a little bit deeper into and share with the people who are tuning in today. But first of all, Grace, can you please just share a little bit about yourself and who are you and what do you do?
Oh my God, who am I? I mean, it changes all the time, doesn't it? We reinvent ourselves through our lives. But for the record, I am from a Pacific Island country. That's where I was born. I grew up in New Zealand, and I have strong cultural and biological connections to both New Zealand and Australia. In Sweden, I am active in the film industry as a scriptwriter and producer. I'm an established scriptwriter in Sweden and have been for quite many years. And then I sort of pivoted and went into the business side and started, always being involved with intellectual property and, understanding its meaning, understanding where it will go in the future. And this sort of gave me the business premise to start my company also in the peak of COVID, Arvet, which of course it means legacy in Swedish. And I love that word so much because I was thinking, yes, IP is legacy, and it's also legacy IP as well as new IP that can become legacy, right? So and also heritage. So for me, those meanings were, that the meaning of that was very important to kind of give a spine to the business model. So started Arvet, borrowed a bit of money, and made an acquisition that became our signature acquisition, and that is the Lars Wilderang books, which we acquired, and this has been our biggest undertaking, so to say, and we could say very ambitious. But we had a very clean and very clear business strategy, together with a very clear creative strategy with it. And these two are synonymous, right? Creativity and business are synonymous. It's not one or the other, it's together. And this is, I think, what defined us, to Lars Wilderang and the agents when we made the approach, and why we wanted all of his IP, because it was about creating a brand value, creating a story franchise, and when we acquire intellectual property, we really work. We believe the approach is we are stewards of the IP. We don't own the IP, right? We are stewards of the IP and work very closely with really understanding what is the story, right? How do we build a story? How do we modernize a story that might have been old when it was written, but really relevant even though today, and much more so in the future, which is why Lars Wilderang was very interesting to us.
Interesting. And that's where we got talking, because when you mentioned him and I said, these past few years, he's been very vocal and he's a leading voice to help translate what's going on the other side of the pond. And he gives his reflections and analysis, regarding the war in Ukraine and other topics. So I remember you mentioned that you were working together and you have a film coming up. And I said, and we talked about the IP and how creators, how you make sure that the people who are involved with the movie making now and everybody, that they actually get fair pay for what they do. So this is a big topic. And I remember asking you, but what do you do because you told me that, we're going to actually focus on cinemas. We're not, streaming, cinema versus streaming. And we had a conversation about that. And I asked, but what do you do if anything happens to the cinemas, if you can't actually showcase the movie? And a few days later, can you please share with us what happened?
Well, that's right. And I mean, it was like, that it was Friday the night, February the 19th, that weekend. Russian hackers had hacked into an IT company, Tevri, which disabled lots of companies and their operating software, as well as Filmstaden and their box office tickets. So that meant that no one could buy tickets to watch films that weekend. And if you are a producer and this is your opening weekend, you're basically screwed. I mean, like big time, right? You're expecting, a box office, that window. The opening weekend is a very important window. Luckily, we didn't have our film coming out at that time, but we had a film coming out the second, the weekend after that. So when I say film, Arvet Agency, together with an Australian company called Dancing Road Productions and a Swedish distributor called Cinex Sweden, come together to release a film in Sweden, a climate change horror called Carnifex. So we were very excited to bring it to theatricals. It was a huge feat in itself. And then this was going on, and we were like waiting Monday, Tuesday, nothing was happening. And we understood that the attack, the ransomware, which was claimed by a Russian group called Akira, that it was very extensive, right? And it disabled not just small companies or companies. It also disabled the government in the sense that the government payroll was impacted, which meant that civil servants weren't able to get paid. So for me, when I heard that was like, that's it. I mean, I hit the roof. I was just like, my God, here we have a nefarious actor, a non-state actor that wants to damage deliberately the country, right? And this is also as we are about to come into NATO. So all of these things are not, random situations. I mean, these are very clear pinprick attacks to hurt the country. And then, of course, as filmmakers, as writers working in the arts and commerce industry, and we have a film coming out, I'm thinking, now this is really interesting. Okay, for us from a business case, it's concerning. My job when we come with our partners and we team up with partners, my job at this point in Sweden is to ensure what kind of risk management strategy do we have in place, right, to ensure that our producers from Australia are going to be feeling, okay, Grace, what are we going to do here? We have opening weekend, what's going on? So we decided to turn this around, and we thought, okay, the best way we're going to do this is in fact flip it around and say, opening weekend, tickets to this opening weekend, we will donate to an organization an organization that supports Ukraine. Right. So these are Russian hackers, and we're saying basically, fuck you. Sorry, I've just sworn. We're going to support now an organization in Ukraine, the country which Russia has invaded, with an act of aggression. Right. So for us, this is turning it around. We're looking at we're appealing to the public. We're saying, come on, don't let a situation like this stop you from enjoying your culture. And we made a sort of a funny campaign with that. But on a serious note, right? Luckily, I can say that the tickets, everything was in operation again by Saturday, from what I understood. But on a serious note, think about it, right? If this is happening, and this is not going to be the first time, there's going to be many situations where this is going to happen. And the question is, what is our threshold, right? When are we going to start, sort of giving a response to this and really saying very specifically as a community and as citizens, but from a civil defense perspective, but also from a business perspective, when are we going to stand up to it and say, hey, we are not going to be bullied. We are going to defend this in the way that we are going to choose, and we are going to give an appropriate response to this. One of the things that was quite apparent to me coming from the film industry side was a very indifferent, there was this indifference, right? And it really was quite interesting because, of course, I know why, but what is interesting is that we as filmmakers, right, we have a stake, we have an industry that's an economic industry. We actually, people are hired, films are made, there's private financing that has been invested, people are waiting for return of interest. Distributors have invested extra. There is a machinery, there's an economic machinery at stake when something like this happens. Now, as producers, you have something at stake when something like this happens on a business level, but on a higher level, right, on a level of simple cultural narrative, and who decides now, that we have a non-state actor that's basically stopping you from making a decision, deciding for us what we're going to see, how we're going to see it, what we cannot see, and why, right? Yeah. And that should really piss people off, because that pisses me off, right? And this is exactly what is going on in Ukraine, but on a completely on the worst level imaginable, right? And we are receiving, these small signs. And what I'm saying is, Sweden, we need to wake up. I'm saying to my colleagues in the film industry, we need to wake up. We need to be operationally aware. We need to apply a sense of operational security when we are looking at how we will, roll out our films. And it's not just, there is a sense that, it's a bit of an exaggeration. Not at all. It is not an exaggeration. For us, specifically when it comes to the Lars Vildrang IPs, we know that he's very vocal, which we love. He has a following. He also has a target on him. I mean, there are people that are definitely interested in making sure perhaps that we don't succeed. I'm pretty sure about it. So, I mean, we are not naive to that either, So for us, it's about being very aware of what we are saying and how we are saying it and whom we are saying it to, but also our business partners, absolutely important. I mean, for example, when it comes to physical filming on location, I mean, we can't film in a country that might be an ally to Russia. I mean, we have to think of it this way, right? I mean, that's the practicality of it, which is why we have a fantastic solution, which we will segue to, and that is virtual production. I mean, this allows us to, film in Sweden, and specifically for this particular film that we are in pre-production with a financial thriller based on Lars Wildereng's book Fallet, we're doing this in virtual production. And this allows us to control our environment. It allows us to work with people that we know we can trust, we work with, deliver, and we're also working with amazing technology and innovation when it comes to AI business tools and film production. So in that sense, we found our solution. And we have to do everything that we can to future-proof, both from an artistic perspective, from a business perspective, but also from a security perspective. Those are the things that I need to think about when we are looking at an IP like this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and for explaining that. There are a few things that stand out to me. One is the IP, how important it is to protect it. And for those of you tuning in, first of all, feel free to drop a comment. For those of you who are with us live, would love to know who you are, where you're from, what you're thinking about what we're talking about. If you have even a few questions, just put them down in the comments, because we can see the comments. We cannot see your names, but we can see what you write. So please do that. But also, Grace, what I love about this conversation, and also what makes it a complex one, is the importance to protect the creators, making sure they get paid for their work. We will talk about IP in various cultural and creative industries. We will talk with creators from many different countries that go through different things. Right now, this is happening in Sweden. So obviously, that's why we're talking about it here, because it's very close to us and what we do. But I also think as you said, I would like to know a little bit more about, from a marketing perspective, from a promotional perspective, given the fact that not only were you stuck now in this hacking incident, this ransomware, but also working with Lars and having this movie coming up, how do you market something like this when you do know that there are also forces out there that might not want to see you succeed, and might even ban you from certain platforms, because that happens more and more. So would you like to address that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, one day at a time, right? I mean, it can become quite overwhelming when you think about all of these, possible obstacles. The joy really is the audience and the fan base that Lars Wildereng brings to him, to his books and to his platform, that we connect with and really try and work with, from adapting, a story from a book, from a novel to the screen. We're bringing the story to the screen, not the book so much, but the story of the book, right? So for us, it's working really closely with creating a joy and increasing his value from the sheer fact that, we're investing in the adaptation from book to screen, and that his audience is part of that process, from a marketing aspect. And so for us, we're doing a little bit differently than I think most producers do here when working with existing IP. And that is that we are very conscious of the audience that the author has, and we speak to them first, right? Because those who know the author know the work. They've read they've read his or her books, and so we know that we've already captured we have a captured audience existing. And then we have to work with, okay, let's create some curiosity about those who haven't read this book before, the story. And we're introducing characters. We're introducing a new story world based on a world that, in this case, Lars Wildereng has already created. So it's like we're working in very different phases. And I think our most important, we always have to remember who is the end user, and that is an audience. What is the audience experience? And that for us is really the key to anything. And then we have to think about all of those aspects, those operational aspects of, okay, what is the, what is the likelihood, or let's future-proof a situation where we might be stopped, or our servers are going to be messed with and suddenly our distributor can't deliver. I mean, all of those things we have thought about and we are already, dealing with today, because we can't take those risks, especially when we have financiers who are also, involved. I mean, we need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to practice risk management. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do. We can't control what we can't control, but we need to be able to think very long term and very wisely and extremely and really not be naive about the status of where we are today when it comes to people such as Lars Wilderang, when it comes to those who are public in the public and who have opinions about certain things, who are very vocal about the rule of law, democracy, values, and basically are standing up to bullies, right? Whether it's political forums or just everyday public voices, right? So for us, I want to say we feel like the ham in the sandwich, and maybe we'll probably get some kind of strange backfire. I don't know, it could also be great for us too, right? I always think, well, that's interesting. I mean, for us, it's like, yeah, anything that's going to create a buzz is going to be an interesting for us in the market, right? And it's how do you deal with that? How do you manage that? And that is the key, right? Is to face it and to manage it, to accept it, to receive it, and to look at it head on, and not to put your head in the sand and think, oh, I hope it all goes away. It's never going to go away. It's gonna, one has to be brave, really, at the end of the day. So when we took on the Lars Wilderang, we just thought, my gosh, this is, first of all, we're looking at this from his books, his genre. He's got a huge range. He's got military thriller. He's got time travel. He's got vampires, smash up. He's got a female soldier, special ops. He's got, a financial thriller based, set in Stockholm, based on the real estate crash in 2008. So he has a really huge range. And for us as creators and storytellers, that is exciting, right? And then on top of that, he's very vocal about, things which are happening in Ukraine. He's vocal about, security issues in Sweden that impact Sweden and democracy, all of these aspects when it comes to security and civil defense. So for us, we have at the end of the day, what's our job? Our job is to do the job, and that is to make his books into films, and to do it the best way. It also means that those who are part of that, we need to package them. They are also representing an IP, a derivative, in this case, a film, that are going to represent his values as well, perhaps, right? And represent the brand. And that is also important, that we work with, that we are all on the same page with how this is going to be managed, and the communication that we give outside. That is absolutely important, that we succeed and that we add value to Lars Wilderang, and we add value to the IP that we've created into a film.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And I know we've got many authors in our community, also filmmakers. So I'm hoping that this is of value to you to hear about these things that you mentioned. And you mentioned, I wrote down risk management, obviously really important. How you manage your IP. You talk a lot about values and core values and brand values, business values. Your company stands for that, your productions. And what I'm hearing you say is that the people that you work with, you need to make sure that you are aligned in those values. So that's a big takeaway for us here as well. So thank you so much for that. You mentioned something about your production. I'm really curious to hear about that. How do you, when you produce your movies, you mentioned you're now stepping into new technology. I know because you and I had a conversation, when we met the first time, and especially in the film industry, anything that's visual, audio, well, basically we're going through a technological revolution right now. It's a huge paradigm shift. Are you working with AI? If so, how are you doing that? What sets you apart from other people in the industry, or not? Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I'm very excited about this because, well, I can say that, for us, when we acquired Lars Wilderang's assets, our biggest concern, well, it was a concern, but the reflection was, my God, how are we going to get this done? I mean, physically, right? It costs so much to make a production. And so we knew that, that the industry and how we make films were going to change as a result of AI. So it was just a matter of time of finding the right partners to come on board and to believe in this, that they would believe in our vision, right? And our vision was virtual production, right? Because from a perspective of scale, this is the only way. And from the perspective of advancing creative possibilities beyond imagination, this is the way, right? And making it efficient, this is the way. So for me, it was just like, are you crazy? We have to do it this way. I love this way. And then getting the right people on board. And luckily, we are so fortunate that we have Thomas Val from Grace, who is a very well-established virtual production producer, and he's coming and he's on board with us as one of our producing partners, and is in fact taking care of of the virtual production aspect of our productions. And this is very, and I can say this, I think, unless someone is going to prove me wrong, so far there are, I think, one or two of us in the film industry in Sweden that are sort of we're passionate about doing productions this way. Mm-hmm. And this is interesting because I know that there's a lot of fear, right? And there's a lot of assumptions about how to work this way. And not everybody should, not everybody can, and not everybody will, right? But this is going to be, my prediction is this will be the norm, right? And in fact, Sweden, we're so far behind. I mean, Copenhagen, Denmark, they're way ahead of us. Norway are way ahead of us. Finland are ahead of us. And we, Sweden, we're, the largest market of the Scandinavian countries, we are behind in the film industry when it comes to adopting these new technology ideas, which is a shame. But I can't wait for the rest to catch up. We are going ahead this way, and we will probably make mistakes, but that's fine, because this is about learning. This is about, going forward. And we have a specific strategy of why we are using a financial thriller as the first and not a huge, big, blow up action, because we want to understand what we're doing. We also, again, risk management. And we're all new at this. At the same time, we also have a very distinct vision about how to make this work, because we're surrounded by people who are great at what they're doing, and they're very passionate about what they're doing, and they're committed to the project. So coming back to AI, tools, we are using AI tools and game software such as Unreal Engine to be a part of this film process. And that is really exciting. And I mean, it's exciting for me. It's exciting for me as a woman. It's exciting for me as a producer, because, I want to see more women in these spaces. I want to see more women creators being bold and coming into these spaces, because what is going to happen is this. And I'm a board member of Women in Film and Television, and one of our biggest mandates is to close gaps when it comes to gender parity, right? To have an equal playing ground, right? AI and the innovation of virtual production and emerging technologies is going to widen these gaps. It will widen the gaps if women don't come in and put boots on the ground and say, I'm here, I want to learn, right? That's enough. That's all you need, right? Mm-hmm. The rest will come, right? But as long as we don't take our place, and as long as we stay away because we're afraid, things will never get better. In fact, it'll get worse, right? Mm-hmm. I have acquired, Arvet has acquired a lot of IP. I don't want just male directors, on my team. I want to see more women from different, all along the value chain of production being a part of these genre-driven Nordic narratives. It's absolutely important, from both an upskilling perspective, but also a diversity perspective. And diversity, I'm not just talking about ethnic diversity, I'm talking about cognitive diversity. We need to have people with different mindsets, different reference points, different education points, different socioeconomic points together in order to make something like this kind of narrative. It only enriches us. So that is also innovation, right? Innovation isn't just about technology. Innovation is about what we bring to the table as people. So for us, it's, this is the holistic way. I mean, it's a systems thinking approach to anything. I mean, Donella, Meadows discusses this when it comes to sustainable development, and these are the tensions, right? The growth, and then the cost of that. So for us, it's always like that too. When we're thinking about going forward in technology, and some of us are not quite there yet. So what do? We're using a way to find ways to upskill ourselves and to support our ecosystem in the film industry with using this technology as a platform to go forward together.
Yeah. And what would you say, because as you were talking, I had a lot of images come to my mind. When you've got a lot of conflict, as we're seeing, there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of change. How can we make sure that we step outside our own filter bubbles, our own comfort zones, to have discussions and dialogue around these topics and feelings and emotions and all the things that we experience? What I mean by that is that even having this conversation here at our premiere episode, I know for some people can be, whoa, this is quite tough or heavy or even political. And I don't, the reason why I feel it's good that we talk about it is because I think it is important to talk about things. We have Russian friends in our community. We've got from Israel and Palestine in our community. We've got from all over the world, from different religions, from different backgrounds. And as artists and as creators, how do we ensure that we have an openness about dialogue whilst having healthy boundaries, whilst exploring, whilst looking into our shadow selves and etc.? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that and the role of the artist, creator?
Absolutely. I can speak from the industry that I'm working from, and that's the screen industries. And I feel I oscillate between absolute optimism, and then I sink into disappointment, right? And the disappointment comes from a lack of leadership, right? When I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, yeah, what is the solution? How do we open up? Well, it's leadership, right? If you have leadership within the industry that is actually curious, right, that are reaching over across the table, across the stage, to say, we want to know what you think, right? We want to hear your voice. Whether or not you agree with it is beside the point. We need to hear each other's voices in order to build coalitions, right? And coalitions isn't about people around you that agree. It's about peace isn't the absence of conflict. Peace is in fact when you have conflict and you can go forward together, right? That is real peace. That's quality peace. If you're in a room where everybody's agreeing with you, I would really say, please run away, because then you're in a room with people who are your friends, right? And you see a lot of this. We see a lot of these very siloed groups within very important industries, such as media. I can only speak from my background in the screen industries. This needs to be broken. We need to start really making, we sort of need to kill ourselves, if you like, if you know what I mean. We need to make ourselves disappear in order for others to bring, for others to take space. And that takes courage, and that takes leadership, and that also you have to, that takes a sense of understanding that I'm not going to be here forever, right? And my job is to make sure that a next generation will be able to continue and make it better, right? One of the things working in the film industry for me, which makes me excited, is in fact the screen, the small, boutique industry companies that are out in the regions outside of Stockholm. In Värmland, there's a fantastic group of people there called Telway, and they've been working so hard experimenting in their innovation with AI, with virtual, and there's another group down in Skåne. There's someone in the middle of, Sweden. People are doing stuff, and that's exciting, right? and they're not getting seen, and well, because they're just too busy, right? But for us as leaders in companies or in commission or in public broadcasting or in streamers and that, I think that we need to bring these people out, because this is the future. And we need to hear these voices. We need to hear what are they going to do next? How can we help them? How can we open those doors? Having said that, right, I can also say I'm quite surprised at the lack of rebellion. When you opened up, you talked about, rebellion and brave and that. I'm kind of like, and again, I'm going to speak from the screen industries, right? The generation that I'm seeing coming up are a little bit, what's the word? Complacent, I'd say. Everybody needs, a firecracker up their ass, I think, to get things going, right? Because it's like, come on, man. I have to rely on you guys to break down some doors. Don't wait for, Swedish film television and the Swedish broadcaster to open the bloody door for you. Go and break it down and do something else. Break the distribution model. Find another way to, make your film, tell your story. Don't rely on an institutional thinking. We are entrepreneurs, right? Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I'm excited about that. I want to support the entrepreneur thinking, the entrepreneur mind, because, that's what we have. That's what Sweden has. That's one of the most exciting things about Scandinavia, and certainly Sweden, is that there is this entrepreneurial mindset. But we tend in the cultural center, in the sort of arts and culture landscape, or certainly, again, I'm going to go back to the screen industries. We're getting lazy, right? We're not exercising our entrepreneurship. We're not exercising our agency. We're not demanding from our leaders, and our leaders are not demanding from themselves. So I think here we have an existential crisis, which I love, because existential crises are important. It's important because here new things get made, right? And all things that need to die, right? It's evolution. So for me, I think that is what I'm excited about, right? Because here's an opportunity for new voices, for new space, for new entities, right? For new ideas. And I think, again, the blessing of AI and the curse will really challenge, some status quo norms. And those who are ready will go forward. Those who are going to be, stuck in fear, well, they'll be left behind, as we've seen time and time again. I mean, it's not what I'm saying is not rocket science, right? It's evolution, right?
Yeah, 100%. I remember I did a coaching session once, and I was all fired up, and I'm like, you have to claim your space. And then the other person said, well, that's great, but I can keep on claiming. But if people won't let me in, it doesn't really matter. And I was like, whoa, that was so profound. And we actually had a roundtable discussion. It was a group of people. We had a roundtable discussion about that. And also what it meant is, one thing as a creator, that's what we can do here at Arts Dynamics. And there are others out there in the industry doing everything we can to help, support with the infrastructure, with the business and the marketing and the sales and everything that's involved with being an independent creator, freelancer, DIYer, and so forth. But it's also about structures within the industry, the gatekeepers, and I often feel that it's like a we and them, or us and them. I've been on both sides. I've both had senior leadership positions within organizations, and I've been an independent company owner and entrepreneur working with or in partnership with these. And I guess what comes to mind is what you're saying, and also for people listening, and I've got many friends at different places in Sweden and abroad. When you do have a gatekeeper position, when you are actually a person in power, when you are someone who can open up a door, please do, because it's one thing to kick down the doors, but it can be also a little bit scary, and sometimes you don't know what doors to kick up, because you will get punished. I hear that so often. Many creators, they say, this is not fair, and they feel that if they raise their concerns or their needs as entrepreneurs, we're having a huge conversation right now in our community, that as entrepreneurs, there are certain things you need to have in place. Let's say you need to keep track of your data. You need to be able to direct access to your fans, to your ideal customers, to your target base, to your audience. But the people that you work with, the organizations, the producers, whoever, they are the middle hands that hold on to that data, so you will never get it. The minute you raise that, then you will be cancelled out, or you will not be brought back, because people perceive you as being, someone who causes them a little bit too much headache. So it's like how you break down the doors, but at the same time people might smile, but you will never be invited again. So I just feel like I'm really happy that we touched on that, because that is one of the biggest challenges that I see for creative entrepreneurs, that it's like the whole be bold and brave, lean in, step forward, speak your mind. But if you do, then you might be punished. So first of all, gatekeepers, if you hear this, I know some of you do, please just do what you can to be mindful of the fact that it's not that easy to kick down the door. But also, let's say that that's not the right path to take. Do you have any advice, Grace, for we speak with you about your industry, but maybe also in general for independents who might have gotten a little bit discouraged, and they need to find new ways forward. They don't want to have a lot of conflict, but also stand their ground. How do they do that? Do you have any tips or tricks to share?
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said, I can relate to that personally. I mean, my own journey coming, which is still a journey, we're still traveling, right? But so far, it hasn't been, it's never a straight line. We're all going through zigzags, right? Would I do it all again? What do I regret? No, none of it. I'm thankful for every moment coming here. However, I also recognize, like as you're saying, I recognize how hard it is for others, especially women, and also men and those who identify as queer and non-binary, the enormous difficulty, right, of coming forward and exposing yourself. Because as an artist, my God, we need artists now more than ever. They are the beacons right now in our society, right? Authors are beacons to our society. They are such an important looking glass to the future, as well as all other kinds of artists. So, and yet the most fragile, right? So how, to answer your question, there's not one answer, but I can say, I guess, if someone was listening, says, how the hell do we make it into this room when you're here? And that is, find somebody that you will trust that can advocate for you in the room, right? That is absolutely important. I have been so fortunate that I've had, one or two people, right? It sounds like that's not many, but they've been important people for me to advocate for me in the room when I'm not there, right? I don't know I know that this particular person, when I'm not in that room, she will advocate for me, right? And that is really important. Find that person that will advocate for you in the room, on your behalf. And that is really critical. And I think that, and I spoke about this, we just came back from the Gothenburg Film Festival, when there's a lot of networking, etc. And it's so important. And I can just say right now on the record, people in the film industry are lousy networkers, right? Completely lousy. There's just like very few people that can network and introduce each other and advocate really, really well. And that's because we're all silos. We're all in clustered little groups. We're all familiar. And, familiarity, exclusion through familiarity, that's very, very common, right? If we didn't go to the same film school, or if we didn't blah, 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 it's just like, oh, we're not in the same, whatever, golf club, whatever. Those kind of exclusions, or those kind of familiarities exclude people, or exclude groups, or exclude voices, exclude individuals. That's dangerous, right? Especially when it comes to when we're in a storytelling business, right? So coming back to finding that person that will advocate for you in the room is absolutely important, and that they bring you with you, right? And leave the door open. And this is what I said to you earlier, Sofie, when we were warming up, that you and another wonderful woman I know, Helen Granqvist, who is the president of WIF Sweden, she opens doors and she leaves the doors open, right? That's the kind of person you want to have. If you are coming up and you need to be introduced, she's done it for me. I do it for others. It's absolutely critical that we connect each other's dots.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think about, self leadership and identity as creators, as artists. I often hear artists describe themselves in words that minimize their impact or shrink themselves. It could be, I remember speaking to someone who a few years ago who mentioned that she was a stay-at-home mom and wasn't quite sure. We had a few coaching sessions, and then the second session was more like, okay, yeah, I've been a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also a musician, so I'm actually now looking for work as a musician. But then in the next call, we realized that that person actually had a residency and could actually invite people, and suddenly we went from stay-at-home mom to being an artistic leader and director even of a whole residency, and being able to work in Sweden and internationally with other creators. And I just love how and I could see in the eyes of this person how the self-confidence and the feeling of self-worth suddenly just rose. And nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. I've been one myself. It's just more how we perceive ourselves. I had another one the other day who mentioned, I'm doing this, but I also have a company, so I guess I'm employed. And I said, well, aren't you the boss of the company? And the person said, yes. And you might be watching now, so I'm just giving you a little bit of extra power is power. No one will give you power. You don't have to do it on behalf of other people. You can just lean into who you are and make the most of that. And that's what I'm really passionate about, just unleashing that greatness within and shine the light within. It might be dark outside, but you do have a light inside that can be, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I can just want to connect back to that, because I was thinking about, well, I know so much, right? I think I know so much, but I also know, nothing. Yeah. But when it comes to, why I started Arvet was because I knew that I wasn't going to get in that room in the way that I wanted to come into the room, right? I had been in a room before and was, had been sort of, was in a gatekeeping situation where I wasn't going to come any further, right? So I knew that if I was going to do something wise and fulfilling in the life that God has given me today in Sweden, I needed to put on my big girl pants and say, okay, this if I say I'm going to dance, then I am going to bloody well dance, right? So that is one of the motivating factors, if you like, that was the premise of, which is my drive, right, for my business, is really saying, okay, this is what I have. I have a little bit of capital. I have a lot of social capital, and I will use it to benefit, to build my business. I'm not going to use it to build someone else's business, right? I'm going to use it. I have, this is my casino and these are my chips, right? And I am going in there all in, right? And there is so much feeling of immense gratitude and joy and power, but also knowing that if I fail on my goddamn terms and nobody else's. And this is what I think that sets entrepreneurs apart, right? We take the damn risk. We will go in. We believe in something so much so that others will come with us, right? And together we go in as pioneers, where this is uncharted territory, right? The loss is going to be great if there's a loss, but it's also going to be fantastic if we can go through it together. And at the end of the day, it sounds like a cliche. Yeah, the results do matter, but so is how you get there, right? And how you get there together, right? And that, for me, that's a success story. I teach a bunch of kids. They're not kids, they're young adults, once a week. And I say to them this: the fact that you're here today, that you've arrived in this class, that's a success story, right? The voice in the head that says you can't do this, that you can't do that you're not good enough, that you're not going to get into university, that's a bullshit story. The success story today is that you showed up and you got this done, right? That's the beginning of a journey, right? Keep going forward. Keep moving forward. And for me, that was really that was the talk I needed to have with myself, because I knew that I wasn't going to come into these rooms. And then once I got into those rooms, I knew that it was going to be another kind of dance to explain, well, how did you get this? Well, I've been sitting on this for 25 years. It's been growing here in my head, and the timing is right to come into a market, which I'm very aware of how it's working. And also what I don't know, I will ask, and invite others with more expertise than I am to join me. Let's build something together. And when it came to the Lashville Drang, I look at it this way: I'm building a house. I'm coming to you. I'm offering you a brick to be a part of this. Let's put these bricks together, because when this house closes, right, then there's no more bricks to offer, right? You're not part of that house anymore. So join me, I say, and let's do this together, because time is running out, and there's lots of exciting shit that's going to happen, both scary and great. Which part? I want to be in the great part while I'm scared, right? Because it is scary, but I want to be on the great side.
I love that. We, in our accelerator program, we've had a theme for January, which is comfort zone, and how life and business and success and everything we want is actually on the other side, or of many things are on the other side of our comfort zone, and how you step out of your comfort zone into the unknown. You take that leap of faith, you make the jump without knowing what will happen, and that can be so scary. But as artists and creators, we actually do that all the time. And I remember I wrote down the other day, as someone I was sharing something with, and I was like, talking about breaking through the glass ceiling, and then I just heard this voice in my head that just said, just like the Matrix movies, there is no glass ceiling. And I'm like, oh my God, it's actually true. There is no glass ceiling. What does that mean? And that just suddenly everything just shifted. So I love this conversation. It's so empowering. So I have a question for you. As we entered into this conversation today, I asked you, what are you hoping to get out of this talk? And also when we had that conversation, you mentioned also the importance of being of service. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I'm so passionate about that, that topic about being of service, right? And I can't stress enough how important it is to be a part of something greater than yourself, right? I mean, we are inherently selfish people. We were born that way, right? To be of service, to offer your time, to offer your knowledge, your skills, your presence, right? In an organization or a group that is nonprofit, that you are building, or that you're part of, right? Again, greater than yourself can never. I mean, the joy and the what you give back in something like that, when you're of service like that, is incredible, right? And this is also about, when we go back to helping and opening doors and meeting and reaching and talking and connecting, this is all part of it. And certainly in my case with Women in Film and Television, we're a nonprofit organization. None of us are paid. We're on the board, and we are of service. We're of service to the cause. We're of service to, the principles and the values that were founded in 1970 in Los Angeles, all those years ago, 50 years ago. So, to be a part of something greater than yourself is truly, a gift, right? And it helps us realign. It certainly helps me realign with what is important. What is the message, right? What is my purpose, right? And, again, it takes us out of our ego, right? We have to learn how to work with people and listen and understand all sorts of different perspectives. We're in a room because we want to be there. There's a willingness to work through things together. We're not paid to be there. So it takes on another meaning, right? And I think today, more than ever, from a civil defense perspective, to be of service in your community is absolutely, I would say, critical now than ever. And we saw, the divisions and the tensions during COVID. We saw both generosity and we saw greed, right? Our humanity. We saw our humanity, right? So now in this time, we are living in strange times. We're living in times where we are tested. We are tested for our values, our character, our time, our resources. And to be able to help each other coming from an altruistic perspective is also a civil defense perspective, because when we are stronger together, right? When we come stronger together, then we're able to resolve things together, right? We're able to understand, okay, what is happening to us externally? How can we together go through this together, right? That is the key. And if we don't start fostering that sense of community, we will be very, very divided. I mean, we already are, right? And it's about practicing that sense of unity, practicing that sense of what do we agree with right now? What do we have in common? Let's build from that, right? That is absolutely critical, and I really encourage those listening to join something, be a part of something greater than yourself. The other question that you had, what was it, Sofie, about?
Just this conversation today, what you pictured also when we got together, what you wanted out of this conversation.
Yeah,
we
sure.
have, and to those of you who have tuned in live, I just want to say again hello and thank you and welcome to our premiere opening of Arts Dynamics Talks Season 2, I would imagine we could call it. It's so great to see you here. Please drop a comment in the comments below. We'd love to hear your biggest takeaway from today, and to know who you are. And Grace is talking about us coming together as a community. That's exactly what we are about, and we don't have to agree on everything. It's more about finding common ground where we can, and also supporting different views and perspectives.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I was just curious, Grace, with this conversation that we are having, what you wanted out of this. Why are you here today? What do you want us to know?
Well, it's wonderful. I mean, first of all, to be invited to participate and to share this space is just wonderful. But what do I want out of it? I think for me, it's about building coalitions, right? It's about building bridges. It's about connecting, and this is also about having, we're all, I say this from my perspective in the company. I don't want to hire people from film school, right? We are interested in a very broad perspectives. Having people from different walks of life working together gives us a very rich culture. If we're coming from the same place, we're not really growing, right? We're not challenging each other. We're not learning about things. So if anything, what I want is to be to connect to new people, to connect to individuals, and to build bridges, which is what I believe and hope that we do at Arvet. When we acquire our IP, we reach over, we find brands that we can work with, we find new business partners that we can work together with, and we find new ways of advancing arts and commerce together, finding innovative ways of doing business and shaping that. So in that sense, it's really, having the possibility to be in the space, in Arts Dynamic space, when, and you're also very layered there. It's also advancing technology, artistic, commerce, entrepreneurship. Those are the very core, principles which I am passionate about, and that we embed in Arvet. So what can I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in the space, and to also invite members and those who are listening to learn more about us and what we're doing and how we're doing it. I like to think that we're reshaping a business model that has been a bit moldy oldie, we want to go towards the future and future-proof ourselves.
Fantastic.
While we tell stories.
And as we're getting close to the end of this session, I've got 2 more questions for you. Number 1 is, if you picture yourself a few years ahead in time and you're looking back, your ideal future scenario, we're talking about future proofing yourself, but you are in the future looking back. What does it look like?
Man, my glass is always full. I'm so happy to say that today. What does it look like? I would like to see what we have built belong to another generation that takes over, right? I would like to be in a position of mentorship and leadership coming from from the side, right? And to be in a position where I could be a steward and a guide. Because the best thing that could ever happen to Arvet is that I'm not a part of it, right? That there are others that continue, right? Because that's a success story. That when you can step away and that you can, allow others to continue something that you started and do it well, if not better. So that's what I would like to see, or how I would like to imagine that future. Yeah.
Fantastic. What can we do to help?
Well, I need lots of money to bootstrap our big productions. That aside, just to have the space and to continue allowing others to speak from all aspects of life when it comes to arts and commerce, because that is so much part of our life, right? It's not separated, right? And we're so intertwined. So keep on providing the space, Sofie, and thank you so much for identifying, pioneers and brave people and rebels and future thinkers.
Thank you so much. Have I forgotten to ask anything? Is there anything final that you would like to add to our conversation?
I was going to, you asked me the question, who would, or maybe you're going to bring that up now. Now
I
I've
just want
you.
to make sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
I can't think of anything other than anything is just to keep going. For me, it's about keep going forward, right? I mean, there's going to be lots of barriers along the way, but it's also for me and those who I'm working with, it's believing in a core vision together. And also having the ability to, well, okay, this vision isn't working. Let's pivot and do something else. I mean, we have to be able to make those choices, because if you're banging your head against the wall and nothing is moving, then it's like, yeah. I mean, what does Buddha say? We are the cause of our own suffering, right? We have to find our own solutions, another solution. So that is that. But also, you asked me, who would I suggest?
We were talking about, for those who might not know, I asked Grace, because this is really the first episode now of many. We're going to do this weekly, every Wednesday, invite fantastic, inspiring, amazing creators just like Grace from all sorts of music, arts, culture, entertainment in Sweden, in Europe, and internationally, to come in and share their best practices, what's working, what's not working, what are they seeing, what are they doing to future-proof what they do. And really people who are leaders, who are driving change and who want to be a force for good, whatever that looks like to them. I do want to remind you all and us all here that we do want to provide a safe space to be open, to be able to talk about many different things and many different topics in a respectful and open way. So I asked Grace prior to this talk, and I just said, Grace, do you have anyone you feel that we should invite to the show? So Grace, over to you. Do you have anyone that you feel?
I do, actually. I do. And I'm going to say Lars Wildereng, actually, the author that we are working with. And the reason why is this. I think that whenever we're talking about security, whenever we're talking about the future, whenever we're talking about, forecasting, right? Narratives, I always think you should always have an author in the panel. We should always have an author in the room or an artist in the room, because as I said, these are the beacons, right? These are beacons, these are our lighthouses, right? Lars Wildereng wrote about the Crimea annexation, the illegal annexation of Crimea back in 2012, right? So, I mean, and it happened in 2014. So what I'm saying is, I would love to hear his take, how he writes, how he sees things as an author, and just this imagination. Like many authors have this incredible imagination where they do, in a way, like oracles, right? Let's look at them as oracles. Because in a way, I think authors can teach us about ourselves and give us an idea about, we could be heading in that direction, and I mean, think of George Orwell with 1984.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So if I had to choose, if I had to think about a guest, I would for sure like to see Lars Wilderang.
Thank you. And you're highlighting something important. Books today, especially, we're seeing more and more of banned books, even for children.
Right.
And I think this is a very important topic to address. So thank you so much for that. And for those of you listening and tuning in, whether it is live or later with the replay here or even at the podcast, if you have any guests that you feel that we should host here on Arts Dynamics Talks, let me know. We're growing this together as a community. So Grace, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and for being here with us, and congratulations on your amazing work that you are doing. You're leading the way as an independent in the film industry, and it's exciting to hear your reflections and your takeaways from your work so far, and I cannot wait to see what happens, and I look forward to the opening as well of the Lars Wilderang movie when it comes later. So thank you so much, Grace.
Thank you so much, Sofie, for having me on your podcast. Delighted.
Thank you. And for those of you who want to know more about Arts Dynamics, feel free to go to our website, artsdynamics.com. We've got our open Facebook group. It's free for anyone to join. You can sign up to our newsletter. We've got meetups now. We're actually meeting up in person in Stockholm at Epicenter Stockholm. So a big shout out to Epicenter. They've been a brilliant partner since day one, and we love them so much. So for anyone looking for a co-working space in Stockholm, do visit Epicenter. That's also where we met, right? But we've also been to Gothenburg, and you partnered up there with United Spaces and Culture Academies. A big shout out to you too. We're looking into other cities, including London, Greece, Athens, Australia, Melbourne, and maybe a city near you. So just let us know. So those are free to attend, and we have a meetup group on meetup.com. Just search for Arts Dynamics. Then we've got an accelerator program as well if you do want more guidance and support and individual coaching, etc., etc. Just go to our website and find out about that. But for now, Grace, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We've got comments here. They say, thank you for a very inspirational and education session. So thank you, Grace. Thank you, everyone, and see you again next Wednesday.
Thank you.